Here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting on 800 stations, on Pacifica and NPR and low-power FM and college and community stations, on public access TV and PBS TV stations, and both TV satellite networks, Dish Network Channel 9415, Free Speech TV, 9410, Link TV, and DirecTV Channel 375. And we're video and audio podcasting at democracynow.org. Our headlines also available in Spanish. I'm Amy Goodman with Anjali Khanna. Anjali?
As investigations into the death of pop megastar Michael Jackson continue, fans around the world are still mourning the passing of the king of pop. Michael Joseph Jackson was born into a working-class African-American family in Gary, Indiana in 1958, the seventh of 9 children. He catapulted to fame on the Motown Records label as the youngest member of the Jackson 5, but soon embarked on a solo career that made him the biggest star in the country and one of the most globally recognized entertainers. He became the first African-American artist on MTV, and his 1982 album Thriller remains the world's best-selling album of all times. Michael Jackson's immensely popular music, dance moves, and videos were known and loved across the world. But in the last decade of his life, it was his multiple plastic surgeries and allegations of child molestation that dominated media attention. Jackson died at the age of 50 at his home in Los Angeles last Thursday, shortly before kicking off what was billed as a comeback tour, a string of concerts in London.
Well, today at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, they'll be celebrating his life and music for hours and hours. But fans have been gathering at the historic theater where Jackson first performed in 1967 when he was 9 years old. Ever since news of his death last Thursday, thousands of people have been streaming by. I went there on Sunday night and talked to some of the people who had gathered.
What did Michael Jackson mean to you?
A superstar, phenomenal artist, and one of the greatest entertainers in world history.
I really feel deeply that we lost a legend, and but there's a whole feeling of a lot of happiness out here.
Oh, Ed Sullivan, when he introduced Michael Jackson and his brothers, you know, I was just a teenager, I guess, a couple years older, and loved Michael Jackson, followed him through the years, and will always love him. You know, I'm so heartbroken and devastated by what happened, but I ask, you know, and pray that God keeps him and let him rest in peace.
Deep down, he was really sad. Of course, he, you know, loved everybody and performed and put on a great show. But deep down, he's just one of those complex, tragic figures in history that just really have problems dealing with the world and vice versa.
Oh, well, believe me, he's a beautiful person, very beautiful person. And I love the whole aspect of his music. I listen to his music every single night, you know? And certain music I never knew that he sang until someone told me. So he's like, the quality of voice that he has, you know, big barriers, you know? Yes.
My name is Chelsea, and I'm right. You were the best. He was the king of pop. And yeah, he will be truly missed.
Just a genius in music. He started a new genre of music and was a real trailblazer, wasn't afraid of any, he had no limitations, basically. So I celebrate his genius.
Well, I was really impressed that he really was a humanitarian and gave a lot of money that a lot of people didn't know about, no big fanfare. So he was really a genuine person and a good heart, basically. Yeah, good person, great heart. And the world needs more of that.
In a strange way, the people are celebrating when there's, you know, so much pain and sorrow inside. Only showing that he's very special, and he touched, you know, he touched the young, he touched the old, and it's, you know, it's a very bittersweet, beautiful thing.
Fans mourning the death of Michael Jackson at the Apollo Theater this weekend, and tens of thousands of them were signing and sending best wishes and condolences, long sheets of paper along 125th Street. Well, for a critical discussion of the life, influences, and legacy of the pop icon, we're joined now by two guests. Margo Jefferson is a Pulitzer Prize-winning cultural critic for the New York Times, author of On Michael Jackson. She joins us now here in our Firehouse studio. We're also joined on the line from Savannah, Georgia, by authoring Professor Mark Anthony Neal, who teaches black pop culture at the Department of African and African American Studies at Duke University. His latest book, New Black Man, Rethinking Black Masculinity. He blogs at newblackman.blogspot.com. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Margo Jefferson, your thoughts
Well, Amy, first I must say I'm no longer at the New York Times, just truth in. Oh, I'm heartsick that just thinking back on the anguish and tumult of those last years and thinking about what this preparation for this tour that was in some ways supposed to be his salvation financially, in terms of being back on top, that makes me grieve. I'm relieved in a way that he's past at least, you know, all of the scandal, the contempt, the loathing. I am blissfully happy that the work, you know, that his genius allows people. People now. Death is strange because real catharsis involves a huge element of just pure relief on the part of people, you know. And what I feel in terms of a lot of this response is, thank God we don't have to think so much about the life anymore. We can remember and relive, you know, the acute pleasure that he gave us as an artist.
Are your feelings the same way as we look at the life of Michael Jackson? Do you feel that right now, as we look back, Mark Anthony Neal, on his life, your thoughts now?
You know, Michael Jackson was my childhood. I don't have a memory of my childhood that didn't involve, you know, a 12 or 13-year-old Michael Jackson. And in some ways, you know, his passing for me, you know, kind of marks the end of any real nostalgic tie that I have to my own childhood. And I know a lot of folks of my generation probably feel the same way. But like Margo, I think, you know, even in death, it's strangely this wonderful opportunity for people to reflect on the sheer brilliance of the man. I think that's something that we have gotten away from over the last 2 decades, and a lot of that, you know, Michael was complicit in, you know, in terms of the Michael Jackson freak show, as you might think about it, these past 2 decades. But to go back and really think about the accomplishments initially with him and his 4 brothers, those 4 #1 records out the box, you know, that kind of changed the landscape of American music, that changed, you know, what Motown Records was going to do. Berry Gordy just simply saw them as a novelty group at first, and he had to take bubblegum pop seriously, you know, producing down the road. You know, we get the New Editions and the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all, Boys and Men and all those kinds of groups. But also think about just, you know, the real work that he did in the early 1980s. You know, folks will never think about Michael Jackson existed in the same plane as hip-hop. But, of course, when Michael Jackson pushes hard and gets his videos on MTV, and, you know, MTV in 1981, 1982 is a very definition of cultural apartheid here in the United States. Michael Jackson, you know, gets his videos played on MTV, and, of course, by the end of the 1980s, Yo MTV Raps is the most popular show on MTV. And folks forget that, you know, Michael Jackson really was the person who broke down the doors that allowed for that, and of course, that allowed for the mainstreaming of hip-hop and black culture more broadly.